Overwatch is famous for its 43 amazing heroes and Kiriko, each of them having their own unique playstyle and being innovative within gaming. The largest and strangest of all is the man as tall as Victor Wembanyama, while also being eligible for my 600-pound life, Roadhog. Throughout Overwatch history, he has had 6 major iterations on his kit, and even in the first few years after the game's release, he had undergone 10 changes to his most powerful ability, his hook. But beyond that, Hog has one of the most simple but effective kits in the game. He had 2 abilities, the aforementioned hook and take a breather, or vape as everyone calls it, which healed him while he stood still. He had 2 firing modes, the long range right click and the close range shotgun. His core gameplay has remained unchanged despite all these changes, as even now, he mostly just looks for hooks and controls space with the threat to one-shot a squishy hero. For his strong one-shotting capability and his ability to heal himself, Roadhog was known as the best solo queue hero in the game for a long time. And even though he hasn't been super good in a while, any tank player worth their salt has a pocket Roadhog pick for when things get desperate. Hog's first version, known commonly as Hook 1.0, was incredibly broken. I don't mean broken as in strong, which it was, but I mean it literally broke the game. From being able to bend time and space by hooking through teleporters, to ignoring walls almost entirely, this fat ass was running games like a prime Steve Nash. Hook, in essence, is a very simple ability. All it wants to do is take an enemy and put them in front of Roadhog. However, in the early days, much like the low taper fade meme, the hitbox for Hook was completely massive. While I obviously don't have access to the first patch of Overwatch, imagine a Minecraft arrow. By pressing F3 and B, we can see the hitbox does not actually match the projectile's texture, which allows you to hit people over walls or even through walls if you use the right angle. Hog's hook was like this, on crack. If you knew where an enemy was generally, the hook could easily lock on and deliver them to Roadhog like a box of Tim Tams. There were also just areas and maps that had poor collision at the time and could be hooked through, like famously the bus on Numani.
Okay, Blizzard! Can you explain to me how this hook lands? He pulled me through a bus!
It was also impossible to break a hook back then. Due to the game's compensation for ping, it is sometimes possible to hit someone even when they are on your screen, and this was especially recognizable in 2016. You could be hooked through a wall on your screen and the hook would not break like it does today. This problem also worked in reverse, where sometimes perfectly good looking hooks would break for seemingly no reason in later versions, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Hook 1.0 is at least a top 5 most broken ability in Overwatch history, which is pretty crazy because people were literally getting one-shotted across the map just because they had a ping over 40. But Hook 2.0 was supposed to be the savior we all needed. Finally, the ability for Hook to be broken was added. It was capped at a certain distance, so if you hooked a Tracer as she was blinking away outside a certain range, the hook would break regardless of LOS. If someone was moving and they went outside of your vision, the hook would also break. In this version, Hook would also bring enemies in front of Hog's actual character model instead of his crosshair, though this would be dangerously tweaked with in Hook's next version. These changes were later paired with Hog's new ability to move while vaping like a 14-year-old, while also getting damage reduction to bullets unlike a 14-year-old. These changes together manifested in Roadhog 2.0, which led to the creation of the best Overwatch montage ever, and I actually mean it this time. Unfortunately, it's made by a Swedish person, so he uses corny ass music in his montages like Radioactive by Imagine Dragons, but even still, it's goated. And yes, I like that song, I just feel like I have to say it anyway to fit in sometimes, but you know how it is. Real ones remember the Minecraft parody Redstone Active. Anyways, I mean, look at this, it would be impressive by today's standards. Snizzlenose and many others used and abused this more consistent Roadhog. It was definitely more fair than Hook 1.0, but it was still flawed and would be improved upon in late 2017 with the release of Hook 3.0. This patch was a slight nerf to the hook, as now players would be put further away, perhaps being bounced off his plump belly. This led to less one-shots, at least at first, as characters like Sim and Ana could no longer be one-shot with as much ease. Later on, players would learn that just holding W while hooking and then meleeing after the left click was still one-shot most heroes. This change made the hook much more consistent, as with Hook 1.0 and 2.0, there were some issues when Hog hooked people close to walls, with Hook 1.0 putting people behind him, and Hook 2.0 putting them sort of out of your crosshair in a weird way. Hook 3.0 largely removed that problem by putting enemies in front of Roadhog as intended. This patch though created the famous spin to win bug, as shown off by 607, who used to absolutely run my shit in MCSG back in the day. I was so shocked when I read his username on this video, but anyways, here it is.
Is hook them. Once you have hooked them, you're going to turn 180 degrees, so just turn around. And once you have done that, you are going to begin to waggle or wiggle. You're going to rotate your mouse left and right rapidly and keep on rotating them in that sort of cone of the direction that you're facing. And when you do this, it will waggle them back and forth.
This led to this absolutely classic video from 2Mad. Rip the bro, may his ghost live on the Overwatch ladder. Hook was changed a few more times in Overwatch 1, obviously patching that bug and creating Hook 4.0, but none of these are very worth commenting about as they did not ridiculously alter Hog's gameplay. Hog was rarely meta in the Overwatch League, but he was integral to a few championship winning compositions. In one of the strangest comps that was played all throughout the 2018 playoffs, teams started playing their flex support players on Roadhog. Bedosin and Jonak, guys that literally played Zen all year, were just running it up on Roadhog, and it was a good idea. Mercy enabled this with her crazy healing that completely removed the need for another healer, and having a fat Hog allowed her to farm ult faster and get her triple res basically as a 30-second cooldown. Later on, he was famously used by known Woat, Super Team Fortress, to win the 2020 Owl season, where he was once again meta all throughout the playoffs. If only he was as good at running as he is at playing Hog. Generally, any hero that could lift heroes up paired really well with Hog, as they could expose enemies for him to hook. The most famous example of this was the Orisa Hog tank comp, known as Pulled Pork, or more commonly as the Suck and Fuck comp. My personal favorite Hog comp to watch and play was Hog and Ball Torture, where Ball slammed people in the air and Hog walked around like Slender Man, just scouting for hooks. This was even legitimately ran by the Hunters once in the Overwatch League. Eventually though, Overwatch 1's time came, and going into Overwatch 2, it was clear that Hog needed a lot of changes as the game moved to having only one tank. What I'd hoped would happen was that Blizzard would release a cinematic where Roadhog started going to the gym and lost all the weight so he could just become a DPS hero, and I think it's still not out of the picture, but it hasn't happened yet. If you want to lose 300 pounds instantaneously, make sure you like this video and subscribe. Also, consider clicking the join button below to become a member. Shout out to the members Hoodbanging65, Left Y, Sakuya Izayoi, Croc, Piglets, and Juices. If you want to hear your name in my videos and even see them early, click that button. Do it right now. Anyways, Hog was not changed nearly as much as he should have been heading into Overwatch 2. Instead of losing the weight, he actually got fatter, going from 600 to 700 HP. As per expectations, Hook was broken again, with some objects having weird collision and interfering with the hook or allowing for Hook to pass through, like the push bot. The biggest changes to Roadhog were that damage mitigation while chiefing that shit was increased to 50% to make him feel more like a tank, and that he could now hook in his ult. That was really it. His gun still felt good and smooth though, still allowing for sweet spot hits with right clicks. If the distance is perfect, a Roadhog right click can expand at the perfect time and unleash what is basically a left click's worth of damage onto an enemy at an increased range. This is the second way Hog was able to one-shot. Here is 6 exemplifying this by sweet spotting known pedophile, Aspire. Hog though was a victim of the game's attempted shift away from one-shots, as he once again lost most of his ability to one-shot off hook, essentially rendering his core Overwatch 1 gameplay obsolete. It's not a surprise that players began to feel the Roadhog was useless. He was simply left behind, and was just a big giant ult battery in that state. Then bam, Roadhog 6.0. 6 tries and they finally got him right. Right? Well, this change simplified Hog's kit, removing his right click and setting and pressing it into one firing mode. They also gave him a new E ability, Pigpen, which allowed him to further control space, gave him an updated one-shot combo, where by setting up a trap and hooking someone over it, he could finally do his job again. I like the lore implication here that, like how all Japanese people can wall climb, all poor Australian people have traps, and all tall Australian people can pull people towards them. Having Pigpen bound to E made the take a breather move to right click, and it was changed to be a resource instead of having a set amount of vape juice for use during the use of the cooldown. This destroyed almost a decade of muscle memory, and even after a year of Pigpen being in the game, I would still think it was take a breather. Pigpen did allow Hog to one-shot again, though it required more setup. If you hooked an enemy and shot them, it didn't do enough damage. But if they were hit by Pigpen in any step of the operation, it was enough to kill them. These changes were emblematic of Blizzard trying to make the game easier. They took one of the simplest heroes in the game, and simplified him more, while getting rid of his weaknesses, and he was still bad. This was frustrating for many players who just wanted old Roadhog back, as hitting a sweet spot made up for not being able to one-shot off hook. Overall, much like your mother, Hog was more fat, useless, and ugly than ever. He did get used as a Mauga counter once, which Coach OC made a video about, but other than that, in Overwatch 2, he's never really been used at the highest level just because, try as they might, Blizzard cannot make this guy a real tank without changing the hero completely. He's the Pinocchio of Overwatch. All he wants to do is become a real boy. Blizzard said, you know what guys, we were wrong. We'll stop drinking breast milk and fix the hero. The Overwatch community rejoiced, as Hog was once again given 2 firing modes in Hog 7.0. Players like Six said this made Hog more versatile and gave him more options while fighting as opposed to Hog 6.0. His right click now flies way further, and he is a perk where overhealth is received depending on hook distance. It's not actually measured by distance though, but instead by time spent hooked. So if you get hooked and spun around, Hog still gets max overhealth.
Yeah, it's duration based, not distance based.
So it seems Hog 8.0 is right around the corner. I'm just waiting for Roadhog 6.7. Get it? Roadhog 6.7. Version 6.7. Subscribe.